Hi everyone, it's Will with the 1907 Diary series, and it's 30 degrees here at the moment on September 24th, 2024. I'm actually wearing shorts, so it's quite comparable apparently to what they had in the Crimea on the 17th of September, 1907. And I would assume, although I haven't checked it, that the weather today in Moscow is quite a bit different from the summer-like weather that we have here in the Portland area. So yesterday, with our little friend, or not so little anymore, it was yesterday's video, I should say, because this is a continuation. This is part 2 and the final part of his diary entry for Monday, the 17th of September, and he'd told us about spending time with Aunt Minnie, having a nice long conversation with her, and nice, yes, but that she had pushed her niece and her nephew, Dmitri and Maria, to talk about the death of their Uncle Sergei and how they had found out about it. So that was a bit of a bummer for them. But then they went off, they broke Aunt Ella's rule and went off for dinner at what must have been a neighboring estate belonging to the Olsufyevs, and they were there so late that Dmitri was just finishing up writing his diary entry at 10:45. So we talked a bit about the old countess. She was Alexandra Andreevna, a Ukrainian woman, the daughter of a hugely wealthy porcelain manufacturer. She was 60 years old, and apparently the reason why this exception was made for the kids to go out in the evening on a Monday was that she was the chief lady in waiting to Aunt Ella, so that was sort of pre-approved. And on top of that, GM was in quite a good mood. So yeah, it was a good day overall, and we're going to find out about the last part of it when they spent the evening at Olsufyevs, and what was on the horizon for the next day. Okay, so here we go. At Countess Olsufyevs, we sat and talked, and then MN started playing cards with the old count, and I watched and took notes. This game of piquet that MN taught me is very interesting. The weather, thank God, is warm, 18 degrees in the morning, and just think, in Moscow it's cold and there's snow and slush, while here it's the same as it is there in July. But even so, despite all that, I want to go back to Moscow. Tomorrow we'll go in a big group to Yalta, some on horseback, some in carriages. It will be great fun. GM is in an excellent mood, so I can really enjoy thinking about tomorrow. 10:45. Okay. So, what do we have here? Why does Dmitri refer to this estate as Countess Olsufyevs instead of Count Olsufyevs or the Olsufyevs? I don't know. I guess he must have known the Countess better since she was in attendance frequently on Ella. And again, we have a conversation as the principal activity, at least to begin with. And he likes this now. Dmitri likes this now. He's not complaining about being bored, which was his constant complaint in the past when he was 14 and 15. So they're there with the Lamings, GM and MN, Maria Nikolaevna, and Maria Nikolaevna starts playing cards with the old count. So the old count was the husband of Alexandra Andreevna. He was Count Alexei Vasilievich, and we have, interestingly, a little description of him from Dmitri's future friend, Prince Felix Yusupov the Younger. And Felix says that the Countess resembled an 18th century marquise. Her husband was bald, plump, and deaf. When he wore his hussar's uniform, his saber, which was bigger than him, dragged along the ground with a hellish clatter. So that's very easy to envision. He was good at describing people, good old Felix. So the saber would not have been a problem in this instance, since they were all inside and seated, but the deafness might have been. But anyway, so the game they're playing is piquet, and it's a favorite of Maria Nikolaevna, and in fact she made a point of teaching it to Dmitri one evening when he was home and Maria wasn't there, if I recall correctly. So it's a two-handed game, and it goes back, I think, to the 16th century, I want to say, and it fell out of favor around the time of the First World War, and so now I guess it's pretty rare. I think Dmitri writes it picket or piquet in Russian, and I guess that was also what it was called in German. I'm not sure what the English called it, but I looked it up and read the rules, and to me it sounded terribly complicated. I don't like card games anyway, so I don't think I will be taking it up. And what was Dmitri doing while this was going on? He says, I watched and took notes. And so that's the way he writes it. He took notes. He doesn't use the expression that I would usually equate with keeping score, but actually I think that was probably what he was doing. It's a fairly complex game, and you win by reaching 100 points, and there are different combinations and sets that give you different points. So I think it would have been very helpful to have a scorekeeper. Why he didn't play as well, I don't know. At some point, I mean, it was only a two-handed game. You don't know what Maria or Georgy Mikhailovich were doing, but yeah, it was a nice ending. And if any of you have 16 and 17-year-olds, maybe you can compare notes as to whether you could get your own teenagers to go visit the home of some friends of the family, some elderly friends of the family, from the perspective of a 16 and 17-year-old, and spend the evening with them talking, having dinner, and playing cards, or even just watching playing cards. And I have a feeling you could not manage that. And if you could, that they would sit there on their phones the whole evening. So in a sense, it's rather charming to think about this day and age, although to be honest, I'm always bored to death when people are playing cards and spending their evening that way. So my hat is off to Dmitri that he was not. So then he compares the weather, and again, he makes this statement about wanting to go back to Moscow. He's drawn back to Moscow despite how much he's enjoying the warm weather, the summer-like weather in the Crimea, and he was a warm weather person, let me tell you. He still wants to go back to Moscow despite the slush and snow. What is the big draw? I'm not sure he's really adequately explained that to us yet, and he's looking forward to going to the theater. He's looking forward to wearing his Horse Guards uniform with the saber, which presumably will not be dragging on the ground and making a hellish clatter. So yeah, maybe when he gets back to Moscow, we'll find out if he actually, despite Aunt Ella's strictness, is going out and having friends and things like that. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. So now GM Laming continues to be in an excellent mood. So Dmitri is very happy about that because it means he can look forward to the big trip to Yalta tomorrow. They're finally going to go. So he doesn't have to dread it, and to the point that he actually wishes they weren't going because he's so worried about GM's mood. So we'll find out in the next diary entry how that works out, and if GM remains in an excellent mood, and if Dmitri ends up enjoying himself. So come back next time for that. Bye.